Hey y'all, hey! Welcome back to Black Wolves Confessions with me, Jax. How's everybody doing today? I'm really excited about today's episode because I think that so many of us can relate to this episode. And so in today's episode, we're going to be talking about something that has happened to a lot of people when they tell their stories, right? Someone hears us talk about our childhood, our marriage, even friendships, or even random events and immediately say, that's not how that happens, or how that happened, or whatever, right? And honestly, they're probably right from their perspective, right? And that's okay. The problem starts when people assume that because they remember something differently, your experience must be wrong. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How different experiences from different people's point of view makes a world of difference of how you view it. And just because they're saying it's wrong doesn't actually mean that it's wrong. It's just wrong from their perspective, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I hope y'all are excited. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to this. I have so many friends that have told me stories and in front of somebody that was around during that time. I'm dealing with it personally. Like, people just think that just because our perspective happened the way that it happened, that automatically it makes us a liar. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I've already tried to record this one time. I'm going to be a little bit of transparent on this. I did try to record this once before. However, I just don't feel like that version was good. It wasn't good enough for me. I feel like I missed a lot of points. I feel like I was speaking from a really bad place in that moment because I was actually literally living through that exact thing, which is why I wanted to talk about it. But it has been a couple of weeks and now here we are, and we are going to talk about this shit because it needs to fucking happen, right? So I want to put it out like this, okay? I'm going to start it out this way because this part I did like about my last podcast that I tried to do with this, but I didn't hit every point that I wanted to, right? Okay. But you see a wreck. There's about 5 to 10 witnesses that saw the exact same fucking wreck. I'm talking about car wreck. Y'all didn't catch on, okay? And most police officers know, and this is facts. I've actually been doing a lot of research on this as well because I wanted to understand it better before I recorded this, because I recorded this 2 weeks ago the first time and I didn't really have the facts in order. So I'm going to have the facts this time, okay? So police officers know that they're going to hear multiple different stories from the same accident. Their job as a police officer is to connect the dots. What all is the same from each fucking story. That's what their job is. I don't know if you knew that or not, which is fucking crazy to me because I know police officers' jobs are really fucking hard, but I didn't realize that it was also kind of a mindfuck situation here. Because, they're literally having to decipher which story or what part of the story from each person is the same or similar, very similar, or whatever the case is, so that they can build their case. Whatever that might be. Whether that's for insurance purposes or whatever, right? Somebody died, whatever. A little extreme there, but you get my point. So you're gonna get, let's say, like I said, 5 to 10 people witnessing the same fucking wreck, but you're gonna get 5 to 10 perspectives because one, you're gonna get it from all different angles. Every angle, it looks different. So let's say that number 1 was over here, over to the left, 1 was on the right of the accident, 1 was right next to the accident, 1 was right behind the accident. You're gonna have fucking 5 perspectives just depending on the fucking area that they are at from that wreck. I know I'm gonna speak on a wreck that just happened not too fucking long ago on me. I was not the driver, but my man was, and I literally had 4 different people tell me 4 different stories. But the thing that was all the same was that the Mustang that hit me, well, hit my car, because at that point it was my car, but the person that hit my car, that Mustang was speeding. He sped through a light. Not sure if it was red or not, but they sped through a light and then sideswiped us. Okay? That was the one common denominator out of all of the stories. But their perspectives of what happened is all different. So I wanted to put that out there first and foremost because I want y'all to realize this is also true for even within your own family dynamic. So, what the oldest child gets from a parent is not going to be the same as what the youngest child gets. First off, as much as everybody knows, this is all of our first fucking times being a fucking human being. It is all our first time being the age that we are. Whether that is 2, whether that is 20, whether that's 16, whether that's 40, whether that's 80. This is all our first times living through that age as us, as yourself, right? So on top of that, the older you get, typically, right, the more life experiences you're going to have, right? You're going to have more life experience. So what the older child gets from their parents is not going to be the same as the youngest child in that same family from their parents. Because those parents have aged. Those parents have grown. Those parents have learned some fucking hard lessons from their older children, so they're not going to repeat it with their younger children, right? Hopefully. If they're doing their job right, that's what they're doing, right? Not every parent does, unfortunately, and we hear all these crazy ass fucking stories about murderous parents and yada yada yada. The older they get, the worse it gets, whatever. We know, right? But hopefully, if they're doing their job right, they're learning from each child what they did right with that one, the older child, and what they did wrong with that child, and they're going to fix it with the younger siblings. That's what they're supposed to do. So the version of my parents that I got, and even my older brother, because he's 4 years older than me, he probably got it the worst. I will say that. Okay? However, I'm right behind him, and then my little brother is right behind me, like literally not even 2 years apart, right? And then I have a baby sister. And my baby sister, I feel like, probably got the best version of my parents, personally. My perspective. Whether that's true or not is what it is. From my perspective, that's how I feel. But that's because my parents got older, they learned from me and my brothers, and I feel like they made better decisions with my sister on certain things. Certain things they didn't. They made worse mistakes. But on other things, they did better. I know that, and that is not my story to tell, but I am going to say this. I know my little sister went through some shit worse than I did. And then I know that I went through some shit worse than she did. Just like I also feel like my sister and I got it a little bit differently than what my brothers got because they were boys and we were girls. I do truly believe that gender matters as what your parent is going to do with that child. I also feel like age matters. So when I was 14, I was cooking dinner for all 6 of us, where my little sister wasn't doing that. She was little, right? She was probably like 7, 8, somewhere around there. She wasn't cooking. She might have helped me sometimes in the kitchen, and really, I don't even really remember that. But I was in the kitchen. I was cooking. I was using cookbooks, and I was cooking, and I still to this day actually enjoy cooking. So Thanks, Mom, Dad, for making me cook, because I do love cooking. I love making concoctions. I love trying to find new flavors of shit. I love cooking. And I honestly do think that it was because of that. Like, my dad was like, here, Jacqueline, use this cookbook, right? And he told me what to make sometimes. My mom told me what to make sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, hey, can I make this? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I really do think I really did enjoy cooking. I remember enjoying doing the cook. The only part that I didn't like was the fact that I was 14. I wanted to go hang out with my fucking friends. Why was I cooking? Isn't that my mom's job? That's the way that I looked at it. Obviously, I know we all had to pitch in our own way. I get that. I understand that. My mom was working at that point, full-time job. So, I really do think that, and then I had my older brother who was supposed to protect all three of us. You know what I mean? Like, I do think there's different perspectives. Like, he had to take out the trash and things like that and whatnot, right? And so did my little brother and things like that. Like, I just feel like different jobs are placed on per whether you're a boy or girl. Mine was the kitchen. Theirs was the lawn and trash, right? And again, oldest child versus younger child does make a huge difference. Like, I had more responsibilities than my little siblings did. And, I remember trying to parent my little sister because my parents were at work. And she's like, you're not my mom or dad. Which, fair, I'm not. But that's how I felt, because I'm like, look, I'm the oldest here. I'm the parent here, blah, 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 right? When obviously in reality, I knew better. I knew I wasn't her mom. I never will be. But, I remember doing that. And, I remember even doing that with my little brother. He's like, dude, I'm taller than you. What the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, I remember him putting me in my place and being like, we're not that far apart. I'm like, yeah, but I'm the oldest. I have to take care of y'all. Whatever I say goes. And they're like, fuck you. You know what I mean? And I think it's really funny how age really does matter and how your parents parent you too. Like, truly. And then different ages during major family events. So, I feel like I said last week's episode where I was talking about, boomers don't believe in therapy and stuff. So I feel like when your parents are depressed and whatnot, and I know my mom is like right on the crest of being a boomer and not being and being the generation after, but I feel like she kind of, because she married a boomer, she's more like a boomer personally, but that's just my opinion. But they don't believe in therapy. So like different life events, like stressful events, when a parent dies, like, because I remember my grandfather, my mom's dad, passing away, and I remember how depressed my mom was and what a different mom she was during that time. And it was shortly after we came to the States. And so, I don't remember when her mom died. Luckily, my stepdad hasn't lost any parents. But, but we did lose a grandfather, his grandfather, and I was around for that. And you just know when there's an event, right? When there's a family dynamic change somewhere, whether that is even great grandma dying as well. Like, I remember how devastating that was to the whole fucking family. That one I really remember because I was a lot older. My great grandfather, I don't really fully remember. I remember a couple things that were kind of traumatic, but I don't remember everything. I remember a couple things from that experience. But I do remember when my grandmother died, and that was devastating for the whole family. And I do mean the whole family, like my immediate family and my extended family. Like, my great grandma was an amazing person. I never really got to know her very well, but from what I do know and what I've heard and all of that, I didn't really spend a lot of time with her, but I do remember she was a great person. And she was always so excited to see everybody. It was great. She loved having little events. She got tired easily, but I remember her loving the events. But people love saying we grew up in the same house, yeah, but we didn't grow up as the same person either. That's the other thing. Like, I am completely different than my little sister. Completely. I'm also a lot different than my mother, going along with the female roles. On top of that, my brothers could never understand being a girl, just like I could never understand being a boy. I would always tell my brothers how like easy they got it. They just have to take out the trash and mow the yard sometimes. Meanwhile, I had to cook and clean and be home earlier when they didn't have all of that. I did, right? And I used to tell them all the time, especially, I really want to say a lot of the times, I mostly said this to my little brother, like, you just got it easy. You get to do whatever the fuck you want. Meanwhile, I have to make sure you have food on the fucking table. Like, I would get so angry and would fucking say that kind of shit to him all the time. I remember that. You know, and that's why I'm saying, like, boy girl really does matter. And on top of that, like, as a kid, you don't really realize the difference between being a girl and being a boy. Period. You just don't. So, on top of that, okay, I'm gonna go to the next thing is memory is not recorded. Our memory is not recorded. So, and on top of that, we remember the feelings of that event more than the actual event itself. We remember how we felt. And so the details of the actual event are scrambled sometimes, especially when there's trauma. Trauma changes how memories are stored, literally. So I'm remembering how scared and unprotected I felt on certain situations, where they're remembering what I did to get that punishment or whatever the case might be. And that's for a lot of people. That's not just my dynamic here, okay? I truly believe that trauma does, and there's scientific proof of this as well. And no, I did not bring up an article for that, but there is scientific proof that trauma changes how memories are stored. Hell, I'm doing fucking trauma therapy, for fuck's sakes. Like, my memories are so destroyed from certain things, and my perspectives are so different than the reality of some of it. And there's certain things that I know that I remember differently because of how hurt I was and how scared I was. I get that. I understand that. And I feel like that is true for everybody. Everybody. Right? And then some people block things out. That's me. I block a lot of fucking things out. And then all of a sudden I have a fucking trigger and that memory just pops in, and then, but because I blocked it out so long, I don't know what's true and what isn't. It sucks. Trust me. That's why I'm in trauma therapy. And then some people remember details that nobody else remembers. So there's things that I feel like a lot of people remember in a detail. Let's use the car wreck incident, right? That, let's say nobody else saw this but one person, but let's say that somebody swerved just a little bit, but nobody else saw it but that one person. And that's what I mean by that. Doesn't mean that it wasn't true. That person might have a tiny bit moved, but nobody else witnessed that, right? That's what I mean by that. Like, it literally is, it could be the tiniest detail, but it could have made a big difference. So, and I want you to understand that, like, people's perspective of a story and how they grew up, or the traumatic experiences that they might have gone through, just because you don't remember it that way, it doesn't make that person that's telling their story a fucking liar. Just doesn't. Like, and I am so sick and tired of these survivors and victims and whatever you want to call yourself, depending on who you are, victorious, right? Of being told that you're a fucking liar whenever you're telling your story. I'm hoping that I'm not jinxing myself by saying this right now, but I have this new friend of mine that I met last year, and I'm really, really happy that I met her. And I can't wait for y'all to hear her story. She really wants to get it out there, and she thinks she wants to use my podcast as the way of putting her story out there. And her story is heartbreaking and really fucked up. And no child should have ever gone through what she's been through. And unfortunately, she's still going through some things right now, and it's just so fucked up what is going on. And I really, really, really cannot wait for you to hear this story. And I'm hoping that it's going to be within the next couple of weeks. Fingers crossed. We're trying to figure it out, planning a day for her to come over here so we can do this together. But I cannot wait to fucking do this together, because seriously, this story is going to be phenomenal. And I really think that a lot of people are going to really, really, really relate to this. And I can't wait to get this story out. But the reason why I was saying that, though, is just the fact that, like, her story is even getting twisted and turned. And it pisses me off. I'm like, or trying to justify her abuser on, well, did he do that? Did he do it that way? Blah, 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 blah. And that pisses me off so much. Like, it makes me so angry. You know what I mean? And so I feel like this is for a lot of people, though, that people are sitting here telling their story. They're getting the backlash and suffering and all of that, and living this traumatic experience over and over again because they're trying to get their story out, but for whatever reason, their family or friends or whatever, their predator or whatever it might be, is trying to change the narrative of the story that actually happened, right? So I will say too, as people are hearing your story, they feel accused, they feel guilty, they're feeling embarrassed, they are worried about what other people will think about them. They realize their version isn't the only version, right? Like, some people aren't upset because you're lying. Sometimes they're upset because you're saying something they spent years trying not to think about. Let that sink in. A lot of the times, your family members or your friends or whatever the case is, when they finally are getting told something that, I'm going to kind of use my family dynamic. Like, we didn't talk about anything from our childhood, really, other than the good shit. That was it. That's all we were allowed to talk about. So now that I'm over here speaking out and whatnot, I think for them, they've spent so many years trying to forget certain things that now that it's coming up, now they're mad at me. And that's okay. At the end of the day, I know my parents did try their best with what they knew. I still love them very fucking much. They're my parents. And I will say that I'm just gonna do me. I'm not going to stop telling my story just because y'all want me to stop. And I am going to help other people out, because that's what I want to do. Because that's what I feel like is my calling. And honestly, my therapist keeps telling me that I need to be a therapist over and over and over again. And That might be in my cards one day. I don't know. Or my outlet might be just doing the podcasts and helping people process this way. And I'm okay with that too. But I'm going to do this. But because at the end of the day, I don't need your permission. This is my fucking story, right? Just like nobody needs your family, friends, or predators' permission to tell your story. This is your story to tell. It is. It's your story to tell. Regardless if it involves other people, it does not fucking matter. This is your story to tell. Your experience belongs to you and you alone. To yourself. And telling your story isn't automatically an attack on someone else. Like, I'm going to say this. Like, I have been extremely careful on how I say things. Not because I am not trying to get my story out there the correct way or trying to lie about anything. No, I'm just being careful on how I say things because I don't want it to seem like I'm attacking my family. Because that's not what I'm doing here. I know they did the best they could. When I knew they loved me in their own way. They still do, whether they're mad at me or not. Doesn't matter. But sharing your perspective doesn't mean you're claiming to know everyone else's. I'm not. I know that my version of my stories are not the same version of my family's version. And I'm going to say that loud and clear. I know that for a fucking fact. Period. I know that. Because I know my version is different than my family's. That's how I know that it's for a fact. Right? And I'm not saying not to tell your story. I'm only saying I'm going to continue telling mine. You want to clear up shit? Clear it up on your own. That's okay. I don't care. Do you, boo? You know, and I just think that, like, a lot of people are going through this. And actually, I would have read the book. However, I listened to it on audio. But Brave by Rose McGowan. I hope I'm saying her last name right. Those of you that are my generation, she was Paige on Charmed. And I listened to her book. I watched her documentary. I've been listening to a few podcasts with her in it. And she is the reason why Me Too happened. Now we together is the way she wants it to be now. That story broke my heart. That story, I know I didn't have it that bad. I know my story really isn't that terrible. There's certain things that fucked me up a little bit. Sure, why not? I know that my life was pretty good from some other people. I know that. But doesn't mean that my trauma is any less than just because mine wasn't as bad as Rose's story. And no, there's no comparison to Rose's story. Period. By any means. And I'm sorry, Rose. I hope you did not think that as a disrespect. But I am just making a point. Just because her story is, and I do mean 1,000 times worse than mine, doesn't mean that my trauma does not matter. Does not mean my story does not matter. Does not mean that other people's story does not matter, including my own family. Honestly, come on the podcast. Let's figure this out. Might be a shit show, but it'll be fine. We'll figure it out. Real action. But I really do think that people's perspective and people's different personalities, and all of that really does matter. And honestly, like watching the documentary on Rose, like really did put that in perspective for me. You know, like there was a girl that asked a question. Honestly, even I took fucking offense to it, but I want to say she was in a different country, but I don't remember if it was Rome or Germany, because she went, or Paris. There was 3 or 4 places that she went in this documentary. Okay, and so I don't remember which one it was, but I want to say it was Paris or Rome, if I remember correctly. But this girl asked a question to Rose, and I don't even remember the fucking question, but I just saw how it triggered Rose. Just triggered her. Like, quick, too. And she had to get up and walk away. And luckily, the ladies ended up hashing it out and being like, look, I wasn't trying to be offensive. And also, like, language barrier, hello, okay? And I have that in my family dynamic. You know what I mean? And a lot of people do, honestly. Like, at the end of the day, America, we are all fucking immigrants, one way or the other. Regardless if you're a U.S. citizen or not right now, does not matter. At the end of the day, back generations ago, we were all fucking immigrants to the States, right? And so a lot of our family members are or don't speak English, or broken English, or knows good English, but, you know, at the same token still hasn't completely gotten, you know, their roots out of their system. So, like, misunderstanding. Like, person that was raised in the States compared to somebody that was raised in a different country, your dynamics are so different. Certain things or certain words here don't mean the same thing there, and vice versa. And so when they say something, there was something, I think it's the word cunt, I think, in England, if I remember correctly. Is it the word cunt? I don't know. It's some type of word that is super offensive here. I really do want to say it's cunt. But in England, or wherever the fuck this place is that doesn't take offense to this word, I want to say it's England. Like, that's actually not a bad word to them. It can mean a lot of things over there, right? And this person on this TV show was just getting so offended by them calling him a cunt, but like as like mate, you know, like, or bud for us in the States, right? But in the other culture, that's not a bad thing, right? And so I do feel like that has a lot of dynamic too. And then, you know, different ethnicities really does make a big difference as well. At the end of the day, it really does matter. And I am here to encourage everybody, and I do mean literally everybody. Tell your story. I'm not over here sitting here saying bash that person. Some people deserve it. I will say that. Some people do. In Rose's case, what she did with her story, that motherfucker deserved what he got. And honestly, I still don't think it's good enough what he got. But that's besides the point, right? And on top of that, there's a lot of things about that story. Please go watch that or listen to the podcast. We Need to Talk is the podcast that I saw her on, that like literally I got so much information. And honestly, if you watch that, you don't really need to listen to the books or anything unless you're just like me and need all the details. She gives a lot of details in that one. But yeah, there's a lot going on in that one. That motherfucker deserves it. Actual predators, that kind of predators deserve what being called out and being trash talked and everything. But I will say there's certain people that did their best but fucked up and made mistakes, and they do not deserve that. Just because it traumatized you does not mean that they deserve to be degraded. And I truly believe I'm not doing that. Am I going to have some angry moments and I'm going to be a little angry about the situation? Sure. All of us will. right? As we're telling our story and we're getting a little triggered, are we going to say something that we might like, ooh, that was a little harsh when we listen back? Yeah, maybe. But at the end of the day, that's really how you feel, a little bit. But that doesn't mean we hate that person. I don't hate my parents. I don't hate anybody. I may not like some of them. I'm okay with not having some of them in my lives anymore. In my life anymore, sorry. Right? But that doesn't mean I hate them. It just means they're part of my life. They're part of my story. That chapter is closed. And I'm okay with that. And I want y'all, those of you that are watching behind the scenes, that want to share your story, I'm the platform. You come here, let's share your story, let's get it out, and the rest will be okay. People are going to get mad at you when you're sharing your story. I hope you understand that. I knew people were going to be mad whenever I started this podcast. I knew that. That's why it took me so long to start. I had to get into a better headspace before I did that. Am I going to say that people still haven't upset me? No, I can't say that because they have. But what I will say though is that if I wasn't as healthy as I am now, I wouldn't. Some of these conversations I've had to have would have gotten a lot worse. But they didn't. And that's okay. On their end it might have, but not on my end. And I can be proud to say that I'm not being mean to those people. I am sitting here just telling my story from my perspective. I'm not saying this is a fucking fact at all. I am saying this is from my perspective. This is what I remember that I lived. This is what I remember how this event went. Never said it was a fact. Just said this is how I remember it. So, with that being said, I'm going to close it out. I think healing starts when we stop arguing over who remembers things correctly and start recognizing that people can walk through the same fucking storm and come out with completely different stories about the rain. And I kind of want to leave you with a question. I don't know if this is going to be my thing from now on. I don't know. We'll see. But have you ever had someone tell you that something didn't happen the way you remember it? I know I have. Do you think they were lying, or do you think they generally experienced it different? Me personally, I know they experienced it differently. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I kind of already answered these questions myself, right, in a lot more detail. But I want to hear from y'all. So please don't forget to share, like, comment, and just tell people about me so that we can get this podcast getting up and up and up and touching more people, because the more people this podcast touched, hopefully the more people we can help. And thanks for being part of my pack, and I hope y'all have a fantastic day. Happy Friday, y'all. Bye, y'all.